That's funny.
You're ready.
Okay, let's go. So an I-ching reading helps you whether you are doing it for yourself or if you're doing it for somebody else, right? So basically, the I-ching gives you the answer if you've aligned with the question.
Okay.
Okay? So you would want to formulate a question. So it might just be, it's going to go beyond love and economics and that kind of stuff.
Right.
It's kind of like, do I need to make a moral behavioral modification? Do I need to, and most of the time we all know what it might be. Do I need to blah, blah, blah? And then you kind of align with it. So it helps us because it's the information that's lodged in the unconscious mind as opposed to the conscious mind. Right. Okay. So this gives us the non-fixed information answer that aligns with the question because it's constantly changing. And so you formulate the question traditionally after you've been in meditation. Okay. So let's just assume that the world has meditated, right? And then some people use coins, some people use a stick method. There's a bunch of different ways. I use the 3-coin method, and I like it because it's about the only place that the minority rules. And so that kind of makes me giggle in a good way. So I use that. And then I've developed a quicker way of figuring out what it is. So the first roll I had was 2 tails and 1 head. So when it has 1 head, it just means that it has 1 line. Okay? There's no book of change in the first roll. You roll it 6 times. Okay? So that's the first roll. That's the second roll, and now we have a book of changes. So it's the second roll has is all heads, right? So that means now the change that we need to make is going to be in line 2. We just keep going until we reach 6, and now we've got head again, so there's no change. And now tails, and there's no change on line 4. 5 and 6 are coming up. Tails again. And then line 6. And then we have another change. So tails with a change means it becomes a head. So now here is the upper and the lower hexagrams. We only have changes in line 2 and line 6 in order to do it. So I kind of made this little cheat sheet. I told you I made this cheat sheet when I was mid-seizure, right? So like, look at that. No ruler, no nothing. And on my side, I don't know how it's amazing what our sub and unconscious mind can do when we try. So the lower hexagon represents line, 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 as you notice. So that's heaven, and then break, 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 if you notice. So it's earth over heaven, which is number 11 for our very first one. And then assuming that our question, we materialize the moral behavior modification necessary to align with that answer, we know that we have to look at lines 2 and 6. So now we're gonna go look at what that meaning is. So the upper is line, break, break. So I look for that. So it's mountain over line, break, line, line, break, line. Okay, so it's mountain over fire. Mountain over fire. Isn't that interesting? So we go from 11 to number 22. So that's the extent that you're gonna need of the coins. That's all you're gonna need that for. So I just kind of keep that really handy, right? Put it away. And now let's go look up what that meaning is. So number 11, according to the I-ching, and a lot of people say it differently, I-ching, I-ching. I learned about the I-ching from witnessing a composer who used it to compose music. So that's how I originally learned about it. 11 stands for peace. And sometimes you get the message in like that very first blurb in the book. And this is what it says. Heaven exists on earth for those who maintain correct thoughts and actions. So that meant that there is an incorrect thought, wherever it's coming from, ego, if it's based imbalance, if it's coming from a I want, is to engage that you don't have. And if you don't have, you're not going to get.
Okay.
It's going to keep you separate. And so I'll read the hexagram information. It says that this DNA offering, so your DNA will shift when this aligns with you, and in this particular case, when the modifications are made to 2 and 6, this is what you can expect to happen. It signifies a time similar to spring. There is a strong flow of energy, and harmony and prosperity are the reward of those who correctly balance their higher and their lower natures. It is by remaining aware of our inferior self while ensuring that the superior self governs our conduct. And this is what will allow us to arrive in a state of peace. So, I mean, we all have lower self. I have them. I mean, you know, like, I'm not...
We wouldn't be human.
Right. I'm like, yeah, exactly. So let's go to the lines, because the ones that we didn't have a change means that we're already in sync with what is considered that DNA, that codone, that 1 in 4,096 chance probabilities offering us to shift our DNA. It's really important to understand that. The second means do not become dependent on a peaceful state. Bear with difficult people and situations generously. Act to further the work of the sage in the world around you. Well, that's definitely for me, because yesterday I was ready to have steam coming out of my head from someone that I felt was not being honorable of everyone else's time, when in all actuality, that was my issue, right? So I needed to find the conduct of my superior self and reinforce peace, which is why I'm sitting here today reinforcing my peace, right? And so the next one where we need the behavior modifications is in line 6. And this is a waning is at hand. I'm not sure what waning means unless it means it's fading away. Avoid resisting this or concocting strategies to escape it. Do you know what waning? W-A-N-I-N-G, waning? We are aided when we submit to the wisdom of the higher power. Oh, well, of course. So, when I was in my ugly self or my lower self the other day, I had to really dig deep to submit to, you know, that whole I don't want to have to submit temper tantrum, but I got there. And so as a result of doing that now, that means that there's the offering to go to a higher dimension. Now, there's never anything wrong, good, or bad in any of these. It's just the offering, right? And so in order to shift that hexagram, oh, I love this. The hexagram of number 22 represents grace. So 11 was peace.
Right.
And so if I'm able to integrate, anchor, and allow peace to be my dominant energy, your dominant energy, or anyone else's that might be watching this, that's the connection, then allowing that higher self to be that dominant control, yeah, I mean, like, that's your dominatrix right there, right? like peace needs to be it, no matter what's happening. Then it leads to grace. And grace says, inside the strength of simplicity and self-knowledge, outside the beauty of acceptance and gentleness. And that's all I really need to hear, right?
Yeah.
So gentleness and acceptance, that's what comes. Good fortune is yours when you concentrate on bringing more grace to thoughts and actions. So I know I could have been far more graceful and not hide behind any stories of being tired or lonely, angry. What are the hungry, angry, lonely, or tired? Those are just another bullshit stories to keep us from being able to step into peace and grace. And I didn't even know that. So I, you know, when I don't have my grace hat on, I go put it back on. Now, in order to actualize, to go from this to this, here's the lines. So they're still going to correlate. 2, concern yourself not with the form things take, but with their content. Cut through false appearances to determine whether your own strength or that of another is genuine or contrived. And 6, by discarding the use of false power, one gains a view of the path to true power. In quiet acceptance, there are a grace and a strength that overcome all else. Well, that's, you know, always a beautiful reminder. And I think what's even cooler about this is This goes from 11, which was heaven, earth over heaven, which is the upside down polarity.
Yeah.
It takes me to mountain above earth, which is actually, that's the wrong one. It takes me to mountain over fire. So it's a shift. It's a shift from a flipped polarity to a destructive polarity that leads to grace. So, that's the way destruction works. And more importantly, number 22, which was, what did I say, mountain over fire? It takes us to the adorning phase. So that's another word I have to look up. But I mean, it gives me a lot of information whenever I need it. And I'll just sort of visualize it. Do I want to be upside down with my heaven underneath me? Or do I want, to allow some of those things to come in and burn off some of those erroneous, egoic, ways and find grace? I think I'm going to find grace. Why not?
Yeah.
That's I-ching. Pretty cool.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Love it.